Welcome to the Veterans Archives podcast, where we honor our nation's veterans by preserving and sharing their stories. You can also hear Veterans Archives on Wreaths Across America Radio every Thursday at 5 p.m. To learn more about our mission, watch veteran interviews, or find out how to record a veteran story, please visit veteransarchives.org. And if you or a veteran you know needs support or resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org. Today is Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. We're talking with Karl Delooff, who served in the United States Marine Corps and the United States Coast Guard. So good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Nice to make your acquaintance.
It's nice to meet face to face, certainly, in a lovely clubhouse at a marina on a sunny Michigan day.
Well, there's nothing better than a Michigan summer. I don't care where you are in the entire world. Michigan has the best water, the best beaches for a summertime anywhere on the planet. And I am so grateful and blessed to be here, and that my grandparents actually selected to come here and to establish it. So it gave me a running start to being able to enjoy the Michigan summers.
Well, it's a good intro then. So when and where were you born, Karl?
I was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, grew up in a suburb of Grand Rapids called Jenison, a little southwest of the city. I had sort of an idyllic type of growing up. I had intact family, mom and dad that loved each other, two older sisters that doted on me. We had a house that was in the front yard was a subdivision with a lot of kids to play with, and backyards with 6 acres that we owned that was largely fallow. And then we had another adjoining, maybe a couple hundred acres, included a gravel pit that, man, I was Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone and all the other frontiersmen all put together, exploring out there and just growing up idealizing the outdoor life and learning what it would take to eventually become a United States Marine.
So really the best of both worlds. You kind of had the city in the front of the house and the country in the back of the house.
Not really city, but a nice enough, basically residential, not subdivision, but that type of thing. And the school was close enough that I could walk to school. So I didn't have to ride a bus until I went to junior high school.
Wow, that's kind of nice, actually. Because then you can tell people that, well, I don't know, we always used to say how you had to walk uphill both ways and all that when we were kids, right? So what year were you born? So you were growing up like in the 70s or the 80s? Or?
Well, I was born in 64, so I am the absolutely tail end of the baby boom.
Yeah.
So I grew up, I can still remember a little bit of the late 60s and early 70s. I can still remember that. Probably the time that I basically became aware was, I would say, the election of Richard Nixon in 72. That's when I can really remember some stuff on the news and that type of thing, sort of earliest memories. And then the entire thing with Nixon's resignation and Gerald R. Ford coming in. That was a big deal because he was a local boy, also a Boy Scout, and I was a Boy Scout for several years during that time. So to me, that was a big source of pride that, when push came to shove, they had to go to Michigan, Boy Scout, to be able to take over the presidency and restore the nation.
Right, get things fixed. So you grew up your whole life then in Jenison?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was born, raised all the way until the time that I joined the Marine Corps. And then my parents sold the original house and then bought another house, believe it or not, in Jenison as well. And so I came back from boot camp and I was in a different house than what I had left. So,
well, fortunately, they gave you the address, though, correct?
They gave me the address.
That's good news.
So,
well, talk to me about growing up. So, it sounds like you were the youngest.
Yes, I was the youngest.
Okay, and what was it like being a kid in the 70s and 80s and kind of growing up in that neighborhood with, it sounds like maybe some of the same friends?
Well, for me, it was probably a little different than most. Okay, so back in the late 60s, there was a Gallup survey that was put out there. And one of the questions that they had on there was, would you allow your child to play with another child who was an epileptic, and I had epilepsy, and it was over 90% of the parents said no in that survey. And so I grew up pretty lonely. I had just a couple friends whose parents had, made friends with my parents, and basically, they knew that epilepsy was not contagious and, was not going to be a problem. But still, that the entire condition just ramrodded over so much of my childhood. The teasing, the bullying was incredible.
I can only imagine. So I wonder what like the big, it's just the fear of the unknown, it sounds like, for those folks.
Yeah, it was ignorance. I mean, because, if you think about it, before the 1960s and 1970s, there was no way to treat a neurological condition.
Right.
And people actually died of epilepsy because if they can't control the seizures and it goes on too long, your brain basically winks out because there's not enough oxygen. And to this day, there are some people that will die from epilepsy. I was thankfully one of the people who outgrew it. And so for me, I was not able to join the Marine Corps until 5 years after my 18th birthday. So I enlisted Marine because that was my goal for a long time when I actually had a college degree.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that some of my heroes basically had said, that my heroes, a lot of them were Mustang officers, and basically said, yeah, if you really want to learn it vertically and you want to learn it horizontally, go enlisted, do a tour, and then get your commission, and then you know how to lead and to lead well. And one of my goals in terms of joining the Marines was to test myself under the most difficult conditions that I could imagine, and to see if I could, number one, lead myself, and number two, if I could lead others. And that was my personal test that I wanted to put myself under to be able to challenge myself. In other words, the only thing given is salvation. Everything else you got to earn.
Right. That's a great quote. I might use that sometime.
You're more than welcome to.
So I want to go back a little bit. So did you know for a long time that you wanted to be in the Marine Corps then? Was it something you knew like in school, or when did that first kind of hit you that that's what you wanted to do?
Well, I grew up watching a lot of movies that were about wars, and I ended up reading a lot of biographies. And so the people that I respected the most had tested themselves in the metal of combat, particularly World War I, World War II, Korea, and also Vietnam. And so I was always interested to answer the question, what was I made out of? What would I do if I was tested in that kind of a crucible? And so it basically formed out of me. Probably the John Wayne movie, The Green Beret, had a huge, profound impact on me. And so then everything was Green Beret Special Forces, which is great. But then the question that I always wanted to answer is, who is the toughest boot camp? And that's the Marines.
Right.
And then who has the most esprit de corps? Well, that's the Marines. And then who has the coolest uniform? Dress blues, United States Marines. And so basically I said, hey, all the other services, great, love them, like them, but I want to be a Marine.
Yeah.
And, because when it comes down to it, it's the old classic advertisement that basically the transformation.
Right, from a boy to a man in that.
Well, from a civilian to a Marine warrior.
Yeah.
And that to me was one of those classic things. So before I joined the Marines, I actually read the Institutional History of the United States Marines, which was like a 700-page tome. And it was not about the battles; it was about the organization itself, in terms of how the organization, developed over time and everything else like that. And one of the things that the Marines will say is, "Hey, we got 200 plus years of tradition untrammeled by progress." And there's a lot of things that has a lot to do with it. There is traditions there. And one of the things that the Marines are very especially keen about is they teach you about all the people that went before you and what they did and the extraordinary gallantry that they had, the warrior mentality, what they did, what they accomplished, and basically saying, hey, you are now in that heritage. You cannot let this chain down.
Right.
And that had a great appeal to me. That entire sense of honor, that I'm not going to let this down. I'm not going to take the easy way out. My sacrifice is going to be laid out on the battlefield. And coming from my religious background, basically a evangelical Christian, that had a lot of appeal to me too, because that's the same thing that God calls me to, is to make myself a living sacrifice. And that matched up entirely with the Marine Corps. So
lots of parallels.
Lots of parallels
between those two.
So for me, that was one of the ways that I could engage in ministry as a Christian, is to join the Marines and basically put myself in front of the things that need to be protected and to take that.
Absolutely. So when did you know that? When did you kind of know that you had outgrown? I guess is the only way I can think of to say it. Outgrown your epilepsy and knew that you were going to be able to join the Marines after a period of time. Like, how did that all unfold for you?
Oh, that's a tough one. So I went to recruiters in high school. They basically said, there's nothing you can do. The only way you can get through with it is basically a Navy Bureau of Medicine waiver. Okay, great. What does that take? And basically, I need to have a EEG, electroencephalogram, that is clean. And then I have to have another one that's 5 years later and no medications. And so once I got out of high school, and I says, okay, talk to the doc. I'm going to go off my meds. Going to talk to my parents. And they was like, not a great idea there, Karl. Says, well, guess what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm an adult now.
Right.
So went off the meds, got my first EEG. Got a clean EEG. And then I had to wait 5 years.
Okay.
And so after 5 years, I went in, got another clean EEG, and then approached the recruiter and say, hey, I've met all the conditions. I need a Bureau of Medicine waiver. And so they says, okay, let's sign you up and get you over to MEPS, take the records with you, and then, go through MEPS, and then we have to apply for the Bureau of Medicine waiver. And it came through like 3 months later. And then I says, okay. So that was in 1988. I got the news that I was accepted, I think, mid-December. And I says, okay, when can I go? And they ended up shipping me out December 28th. And it turns out they shouldn't have.
Oh.
Because there was nobody there to receive me. So I never got to stand on top of the golden footprints.
You got to skip that whole thing.
I got to skip that entire part of it because there was, they literally had to rouse the duty guy to come there. There was 3 of us that got shipped out that weren't supposed to be there, and they basically stuffed us in the back of a sedan and brought us over to boot camp, and then didn't even have uniforms or anything else like that. We had to wait until, let me see, we got to see part of the Super Bowl. And I think like January 3rd or something like that, we came in at a receiving platoon. And so we were still wearing the same clothes we were in and everything else like that. And it was just,
yeah.
I mean, it was just holding pattern.
Right. Just kind of hurry up and wait, which is sort of the military way.
Well, believe it or not, hurry up and wait is one of the key essentials of freedom. Because if you don't have that slack time, or from a project management perspective, we call that float,
Right.
you are never, ever going to have freedom, because that means you're always on somebody else's treadmill. Only when you control your schedule. And that is probably one of the biggest lessons that I was taught as a Marine, is to not look at hurry up and wait as an imposition, but as actually freedom, that I am actually in control. I have ownership of my time, I have ownership of my destiny, and I'm not waiting on somebody else to act because I'm ready.
That's a very interesting perspective. I do want to go back a bit though. So in that 5-year period of time, you did some stuff. I'm assuming you went to college.
Yep, went to college, graduated with a degree in political science from Hope College.
Okay.
Got part of the honors program, went to Washington, D.C., was able to work for the Heritage Foundation and the American Security Council. And then also spent some time in the family business, which was heavy construction.
Oh, okay.
So helped my dad build some buildings and that type of thing, part of Friley construction at the time. And, that's basically in a holding pattern. Also I helped the Dick Chrysler for governor campaign during that period of time as well.
Oh, okay. So you had some really good experience going into basic training then.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit more than the average guy coming into boot camp.
Yeah. So it was really interesting in basic training. You get 1 week of being in what they call admin or receiving platoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you get what they call it dropping in to your, or getting picked up by your senior drill instructor and the other drill instructors. And then, basically after, the second day, you're in there, they say, okay, everybody up. Everybody who has some college education, raise your hand. And, of course I raised my hand, and then, okay, how many people have more than 1 year? More than 2 years? More than 3 years? Of course, I was the only college graduate in the entire platoon. It says, okay, you're the scribe. So, of course, that's a little inversion from what typically happens, because usually your enlisted going in do not have a college degree. That's your officers. They
Right.
go through OCS and then go to the basic school and everything else like that. My intent at that time was to spend 4 years as a enlisted Marine and then go to OCS and go to the basic school and become a Marine officer. Didn't quite happen that way.
It's funny how the plans that we make don't exactly work out all the time, right? I mean, they work out the way they're supposed to, but maybe not the way that we thought they would.
Well, I honestly believe that God has a really, really good sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that every time that we announce a plan, that he laughs.
I would agree.
So, which, when it comes down to it, I'm very happy to be in whatever plan that God has for me. I just don't know what it is, and I just got to, okay, so there's a few mottos that you need to be aware of. Okay, what is the motto of the Marine Corps? Well, it's Semper Fidelis.
Right.
Always faithful. What is the motto of the Coast Guard?
Semper Paratus.
Semper Paratus, which means always ready. So the Karl Delooff motto is Semper Gumby, which means always flexible.
Exactly. I have that posted in my house somewhere, actually.
It's not original to me.
Sense.
I mean, but that's the entire thing. Is you have to stay flexible. You have to stay adaptable. And as soon as you get rigid, you're no longer usable.
Right.
Because then you're brittle and you're going to break.
Yeah, you have to be able to bend.
Yeah, you have to improvise, adapt, and overcome. The famous other motto of the Marine Corps, came out of Heartbreak Ridge, used that all the time.
It's a great movie, by the way.
Oh, fun.
I love that movie. So what was your boot camp experience like then?
Well, different than most.
Mm-hmm.
So I did all the admin. Now, the interesting thing for me for boot camp is on the way through the airport, I got sort of jostled and pushed and slipped on something in the airport, and my left big toe crashed into a stair riser, and my left big toe broke.
Oh, no.
And so in boot camp, when I reported that as part of medical, they sort of looked at me and says, well, you got two options. You can either go get recycled into medical platoon and then wait for it to heal up, or you can tough it out and go through boot camp. And I thought, well, I'm here for the challenge, so I'm going to tough it out, and I'm going to go through boot camp. So I went through boot camp healing a broken left big toe, which now is full of arthritis.
As if boot camp wasn't hard enough anyway, right?
Yes.
And you didn't do yourself any favors by not letting it heal.
Right. And then the other thing they found out in boot camp is that I had impacted wisdom teeth, so they actually did surgery on that while I was in boot camp and took those out.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to recover from wisdom teeth along with a broken toe while I was in boot camp.
That's pretty incredible. Now, did you make it through and graduate with your initial class then?
Oh, yeah. I was not going to let anything stop me.
Wow, apparently not.
No.
Apparently not.
Well, that's the entire thing.
Right.
Am I up to the challenge? Can I persevere? That was the big thing I was trying to find out. What am I made out of?
Mm-hmm.
You know, can I do what needs to happen when the time comes?
Broken toe, bad wisdom teeth, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah. And it's interesting, early on in our conversation, you used the term crucible, which I believe is also the term that's used for like the final field exercise.
No, that was well after me.
Oh, that happened after you?
Yeah, that happened after me.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I was the last platoon that graduated before they instituted Marine Corps warrior training.
Mm-hmm.
That was a couple weeks in between boot camp and then coming back and doing Marine Corps warrior training and then going to your primary school.
Mm-hmm.
So I went right to School of Infantry.
Okay.
Which I thought was pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
Well, here's...
If you're going to be in the Marine Corps, you might as well be in the infantry, right?
Well, that's the other thing. I went in open contract.
Okay. I'm just going to say, I just want to stop here for a second. For someone looking from the outside in and someone who served in the military, I mean, it sounds like things really worked out great for you, but you did everything wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like everything possibly wrong, but it all worked out. So anyway, I'm sorry, you came in open contract.
I took my SFAB.
Uh-huh.
I found out that I had only one question wrong on the entire SFAB. So I got into boot camp and they were getting assignments and they says, okay, Karl Delooff. Yes. Avionics. No. That's not what I signed up for. I don't want to be a technician. I want to learn how to lead people in the most difficult circumstances of life. And then they says, okay, well, what do you want to do? I want to go into the infantry.
Did they just shake their heads?
I had, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 Marines there, sergeants and above, including a couple officers, that literally gave me a jaw drop.
Yeah.
They said, are you sure that's what you want to do? You don't want to swing with a wing? No, I want to go into infantry. Okay. And what do you want to do in the infantry? I says, what's the hardest thing? And they said, weapons platoon. Okay, give me weapons platoon. So they made me an 0341, mortars.
Yeah.
So I in combat, I actually had to do essentially basic trigonometry while being shot at.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
What's the old phrase? You got to be smart enough to do the job, but dumb enough to take the job.
Right.
Yeah.
That was me.
You were right there.
That was me. Well, I was just keenly focused. You know, I wanted to answer the basic question: do I have what it takes? And then I wanted to learn what it would take to lead men in the most difficult circumstances. And the only thing I could imagine that would be the most difficult is leading men in combat.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to find out about myself, and then I wanted to learn a skill that could not be done any other way than actually by doing it.
Right.
Because I don't care how much school you have in leadership, until you go to exercise it in the real world under stress, you don't know if you know. You do not know if you have what it takes.
Right. That's true. And some people are just not leaders.
I don't believe anybody is a leader until they decide, I'm going to intentionally learn how to lead. I'm going to learn the skills of leadership, and I'm going to practice and practice and get it wrong until I get it right.
Yeah. So you go to your infantry course, you graduate from there. Where do you go after that?
Well, essentially, I'm going to San Onofre, which is basically the next one up, and go to Indy Company 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines. They're just rotating back from an overseas pump, and they're putting in a whole bunch of fresh Marines in to take that in. Because a lot of people are getting out at the time and that type of thing, and they were going to reconstitute it. So it's basically starting from base zero and learning how to be a Marine in the fleet, and then getting ready for training exercises and getting ready to be able to go overseas and everything else like that.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we did beyond a typical training was we did a mission down in Honduras. It was actually a mission for the CIA. It's now in Wikipedia, so it's out in the open. And we were training the Honduran army to go up against the FMLN, which is in El Salvador, which have now been taken apart by the El Salvadoran government, and a few remnants of them are now in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to go down there. That was interesting. I mean, that was the first time I understood the absolute poverty of the third world. And my first indication of just how blessed we were in the United States and what we were given by our founding fathers, and to develop a culture of trust that was not based on strictly family or strictly tribe.
Right.
I mean, incredible. So a lot of the stuff that I learned in my political science degree, I got to see in real life and actually understand from an embodied perspective by watching it. We did a mission because I was, doing the older ones and mature and everything else like that. They took me in a lot of the stuff that required people that they could trust. And so we went to deliver medical supplies and other stuff like that up this stream. And so there's going up the stream. There was like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 villages up the stream. The stream went up, I don't know, probably I think 4 or 5 kilometers. Basically not even a gravel road. It was just straight dirt. It was eroded and everything else like that. Took everything that it could do to get trucks up there type of thing. I mean, it was essentially almost a combat mission to get up there.
Yeah.
And every single one of the communities there had the exact same sanitation, which basically they had an outhouse downstream, and then they had their water dipper upstream. And the ones that are down in the valley had the best agriculture, but had the most gastrointestinal parasites and everything else like that.
Oh yeah.
And the one up at the top, the people were the healthiest in terms from a parasitic perspective, but they had almost no agriculture, and they were the skinniest, smallest people that you can imagine, because trying to eke something out down there, they had essentially, I don't know, it's almost like a yam or something like that they could, get out of the ground, and then, they'd boil and pulverize, and that would be their staple. And so the stuff that we brought them was just, like incredible. I mean, I got a 6-pack of Cokes and, gave them to a couple of the kids, and, that was probably they got like one a year. And to have a stranger come and give them a Coca-Cola was just incredible. You take a look down there, there is no culture of trust unless you are in a particular family or in a family group there's no trust in between families. And so the corruption down there and the ineptitude down there is just incredible because you can't trust another person because they're not family.
Yeah.
And that is so different than what we have here. I mean, I've had handshake deals to buy a car. You know, when we would go on vacation, we would leave the doors unlocked in case the neighbors needed to borrow sugar.
Right.
Absolutely unheard of in much of Latin America and the third world. It's just a completely different culture of trust. And if you can have that culture of trust, you know, when it comes down to it, that is the number one resource it takes to be able to have a modern economy.
Mm-hmm.
And if that can't be developed in whatever way, you have essentially a lot of the developed world. It's full of corruption and you can't trust anybody. Afghanistan. You know, what is it? It's everybody fighting each other over scarce resources.
Right.
You know, and the only way you can trust somebody else, well, do you have the exact same theology I do? And even then, they'll go at each other.
Right. There's always going to be some slight difference that
and so
that.
it's, you know, you have to be able to have that basic lubrication. And so trust is huge, and then having social norms and what we basically call manners.
Yeah.
And being polite. You know, to have that lubrication to eliminate that friction. And that's something our founding fathers and quite honestly, that, you know, Christianity gave to us, is the ability to have that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would say the other corollary to that is the ability to forgive and to say, okay, God, you are the one with justice. I do not have to take revenge. I don't have to defend honor because that's what you are. And so therefore I can trust other people. I can trust you, and I can go forth and do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I can leave all that nasty stuff in the background, and I don't need to enforce that myself.
Right. So when you're in Honduras, then you're having to try and build this trust with the folks you're training as well, correct?
Well, in Honduras, the big thing is you know, trusting the other Marines you're with.
Right.
I have no means and methods to communicate to the Honduran Army. I don't. We basically had to build trust with the fellow Marines. And, you know, we did not have a whole bunch of time to form up as a Marine unit. So this is one of the ways that we develop that trust, you know, because you get somebody out of, you know, the regular type of thing, and now you got to depend on somebody, you know, you're completely in a different country, different field, everything else like that. And so if you can't trust the Marine that's beside you, you got problems. Yeah. And so how do you build trust? Well, you got to put yourself into situations where trust can be lost, and then differently, you actually earn it. Mm-hmm. So it was illuminating, just because of what you could see and not see there.
Right.
You know, it was very village, very family, very tribal, and so they didn't trust the people in other areas, and so because of that, trying to have interactions between them. You know, when we go upstream, well, did you talk to the people downstream? Okay.
Right. Right. So how long were you there doing this mission?
I think we were there about a month.
Okay.
So a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
The memory's foggy on that. I'd have to take a look at some of the other stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
But the other thing that came to play is that they actually delivered some of the boots that we would wear for their soldiers, but they had no socks.
Oh.
So they were wearing our kind of boots without socks. And of course, it was just blisters all over the place and blood in the boots and everything else like that. It was just, you know, to be a Honduran soldier at the time was absolutely miserable. The kind of conditions they had, what they ate and everything else like that. I mean, the fact that we had 3 MREs a day was just fascinating to them.
Yeah, that's probably a couple days worth of food just in one MRE, isn't it, for them?
It could be. I don't know. I
Right.
mean, I was a giant down there.
Uh-huh.
I stand about 6'3" back then. Well, still today, I'm about 210 pounds. And average Honduran soldier down there was maybe 5'4" and 110 pounds flat.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was double their weight and about a foot taller.
Yeah, they must have looked at you a little bit differently.
Yeah. Well, it was almost, there was curiosity, respect, but then also scared.
Yeah.
So they didn't quite know what to do with us. And so, we did some, combined stuff and that type of thing, but it was more along the line. They were there to observe and to sort of get used to, some of the tactics that we showed them. And that was another thing, is they didn't know how to cover and move to support each other in a combat type of scenario.
Mm-hmm.
That was something they had to be taught and demonstrated and everything else like that. And, obviously it's a little easier because it's all hand and arm signals. So we don't have to learn Spanish. They didn't have to learn English. But again, the entire trust issue.
Yeah.
They didn't trust each other like we could as Marines. Two very, very different cultures. You're in the Honduras Army. You didn't come from my family. How can I trust you?
Yeah. I guess it makes sense for how they lived.
Yeah. And so, I think to this day, many in Latin America are still in a developing scenario.
Uh-huh.
And until they can get to a default trust, they're going to end up with that same issue.
Right.
I mean, it's not that simple. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes into it, but that's the number one thing it takes to have a modern economy.
Right. We could talk about it for probably a week at least, right? So you finished up your tour there, and then you came back, and you were in the Marine Corps for how long total then?
So 88 through 92, halfway through 92, is 3.5 years total. I got early out to go to Coast Guard OCS.
Okay.
And during that time, we had Desert Storm.
Yep.
Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So combat out there. And then after that, we actually had a rotation to go to the Far East. And so we did the Philippines, Okinawa thing.
Wow. But so you went over for Desert Storm then, the initial?
Yes.
And how was that?
How to describe that? Well, probably the first thing that came out, because what ended up happening is we were at the Seattle Sea Fair, aboard the Bellawood doing static displays and everything else like that. It's supposed to be this great, wonderful thing. And of course, Saddam Hussein crossed over into Kuwait and recalled everybody and got it on the ship, full military power down the coast, and they flew us off the deck in CH-53s. We had 24 hours to settle our affairs in the barracks and move out and, deal with everything else like that. Probably I had a car, so I was able to put all my stuff in my car and then store that. But there was a guy that had a really expensive guitar that was too big to fit in my car, so I couldn't help him out with it. And he had to throw it in the trash.
Wow.
Because there's nothing you could do.
Right.
And went to 29 pounds, and we were there for just about a week, and we got some desert refresher training, how to move across deserts and that type of thing. And then we got flown over basically via Federal Express.
Absolutely positively had to be there overnight, didn't you?
Yes, absolutely positively had to be there overnight. And it was very interesting for the people that were the flight attendants, because we're coming in and we all have pistols and rifles and everything else like that. And they had never seen overheads completely full of automatic weapons before.
Right. Not something that usually gets past TSA.
No. Very, very different context and that type of thing. But we were one of I think we were absolutely the first unit to get the equipment off of one of the MPS ships.
Okay.
So basically they timed our arrival from 29 pounds so that we could actually take the stuff right off the maritime prepositioned shipping ships. And the thing that impressed me the most is we got onto the tarmac after being on the airport to get on the port to get our stuff, the Amtraks and everything else like that. And our boots started melting on the pavement.
Yeah.
One of the cooks jabbed a meat thermometer into the sand out there, and the sand itself was 160 degrees. It's almost what you need to cook meat to be safe.
Yeah. I don't think people could grasp that whole. Every time I hear, it's a dry heat, I just want to punch somebody in the nose because that's hot.
Oh, it was just incredible. And then, you're scratching for shade there, and there's no shade.
Right.
One of the classic jokes we had here, which is not politically correct, but I'm going to say it anyway. We called the woman behind every tree tour.
It's true, because there were no trees, right?
And there was no women.
Yeah, I can see it. Now, how long were you there? Because it was a very short war, wasn't it?
So we got there in August. We were there August 10th or something like that. I mean, we were one of the very first units to actually arrive in theater.
Yeah.
And then they stuck us out, and we called ourselves the speed bumps. We were essentially, I think, 1 or 2 kilometers south of the Iraqi lines that they dug into Kuwait. And our job was to be the early warning in case something came over the wire, which of course they never did. And we just sort of moved around in an area. Of course, here I am, a mortarman. They gave me a map, and they got you got grid lines on there, and then you got supposedly the survey, and they actually got it at a 1 meter survey, 1 meter of elevation. Great. Total amount of elevation on that entire map. And this thing is covering, I don't know, probably 160 square kilometers. There's 8 meters of total elevation change on the entire map. There's no way to locate anything without GPS. And of course, there's one GPS unit for the entire unit. And so there's nothing you can do as a mortarman. I mean,
yeah, no terrain navigation at all.
There's nothing. It's like being out at sea.
Yeah.
Which of course is an ideal thing for Marines and Navy. Hey, we're out at sea, but then again, I don't have a sextant either, so I can't shoot sunlines.
Right. So you guys just sort of passed around the GPS when you needed it. How did that work?
Yeah. Well, essentially, the captain would come up with the GPS, and here's gun number 2, here's gun number 1, and here's your azimuth that we think you're going to be at, and can I fire registration rounds? Nope, don't fire anything.
Just sort of another kind of hurry up and wait scenario, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course, what ended up happening is they ended up with the water buffaloes that come out, which basically is a 500-gallon water tank on wheels. And they did the disinfecting wrong, and the entire company came down with dysentery. And it was bad. I mean, you couldn't hold anything down. It was just coming straight out the bottom end. Sanitation went out the window. I mean, there's nothing you could do. And you can't wash your clothes after you soil yourself. Trying to keep this G rated as much as I can.
No, I think we're getting the picture. It's miserable.
It was just miserable. And then then they tried to retrench and to come back with another way of doing it, and then they over chlorinated the water. And that gives you a whole nother kind of GI problem. It took like 2 weeks before they finally got all that straightened out, and they tried to have everybody on the same watch cycle. So you got 4 hours down during the day and 4 hours down at night. And of course, you can't sleep during the day because it's way too hot. And at night, it would get down to maybe 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And at 80 degrees Fahrenheit, you're shivering.
It actually feels cold. I don't think people realize that either.
Oh, yeah. You're just shivering. And then dung beetles and flies and scorpions, and we ended up running into a cobra at one time, and it was
Just everything imaginable that could go wrong. Well, it sounds terrifying, actually.
well, this was our life, and so
Right.
you had to adapt, you had to overcome, you had to do the stuff that was absolutely required. That was required to actually make all that work.
Right.
Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention, when we were getting our affairs settled, we had one guy that disrupted because of supposedly mental illness issues with his girlfriend and him.
Uh-huh.
He ended up spending time in the brig. And then we had one guy that couldn't take the thought of going into combat, and he actually ran his Ford Ranger into a bridge abutment at high speed, basically committing suicide.
That's awful.
Absolutely awful. And so everybody had different reactions to that type of scenario. You can't predict it.
Right. Right.
And
Well,
then,
because people are individuals and they all have their own way of dealing with things.
right. And a lot of it has to do with, anticipation. So my anticipation was, okay, we're going into a potential combat scenario. Good. I get to test myself.
Yeah.
So I had a very different mindset than a lot of other people did, because that's literally what I'd signed up for as a Marine.
Let's take a quick break.
Before we continue, we'd like to share a resource that may be helpful to veterans and their families. The Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org is designed to connect veterans with support, resources, and a community that understands their experiences. If you or a veteran you know could benefit from those resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app and learn more at vetlifetoday.org. Well, and you have the whole range, right? The people who are trying their darndest to get out of this thing, and then the people who are, this is what they signed up for, and then everybody kind of in between, right?
Right. And there's people beyond me that basically thinking the only thing I want to do is get into combat, and try to kill somebody,
Right.
which is nearly at the size of another kind of mental illness.
Yeah. Yeah, the people who like it too much, that's not good either.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to take a look at it from all different sides, and here's the question you need to ask. Well, can I actually do this? And the answer is, you don't know till you get there.
Right.
And you just simply have to trust your training. You have to trust your fellow Marines, and then you got to trust, God and everything else that you come with, and saying, okay, this is what's going to happen. Here's what we're going to do, and we're going to have to find out
Stuff.
Yeah. So we call ourselves the speed bumps.
Yep.
And everything's sort of an experiment, because there's nobody left over right now in our entire command from Vietnam.
Yeah.
So there's no combat veterans. So everybody is learning this as we go. And of course, the expectation is, hey, your command is going to, they know exactly what to do.
Right. Except they don't.
No. They're figuring this out too,
Right.
And so when you're the PFC hanging around, you're saying, well, tell me what to do. And everybody, the officers are saying, well, we got to tell them what to do. Okay, great, fine. Except they're looking at, okay, generals, general staff, division staff, tell us what to do. And, Colin Powell,
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam, general. Okay, you got a few select people that have been around a while, but I'll tell you what, from their own words, fighting in wide open desert versus fighting in a jungle are two very different things.
Yeah. And for years we had trained for the kind of Cold War / jungle, not the desert.
Right. So that's a mistake every single military makes. They learn lessons from the last war, and they apply them in the present, and think in the future war is going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
And as we're seeing right now in Iran and in Ukraine, everything has changed. So, Patriot missiles, fantastic. If you're going to swap shots with a $10,000 drone for the Patriot missile, you're going to bankrupt yourself really, really fast.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different kind of warfare. Sea drones. On the radio on the radio today, they were talking about, or a podcast today, they were talking about the Chinese are testing a AI robotic dog that's equipped with a machine gun.
That's the thing nightmares are made out of right there.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking the entire Terminator series, it all come to life.
Yeah.
And, we are going to have to exist in that kind of format in the future. And at the same time, we were in Desert Storm. We were learning all those lessons of how to fight in that. But even then, the Desert Storm experience was completely different from the Iraq War experience, completely different from the Afghanistan experience.
Yes.
Because, here we were talking, Soviet tactics going up against American combined arms. That is never going to happen again.
No.
Nope. That entire model's gone. In fact, the Marine Corps divested itself out of all the tanks. And the latest, all the Amtraks that we used in Desert Storm are all gone too. So all that stuff, all that knowledge is no longer applicable. Now, the thing that doesn't change is the psychology of the mind. Do you have the warrior mentality? Do you have that adaptability or not? Quite honestly, that's what I was trying to get through myself. And whatever environment I could apply it in, I would adapt to that environment and then go forward. That was my entire scenario.
I believe that's what makes the American military so formidable, is that we do have tactics and procedures and techniques, but we don't always follow them. We look at how the situation's unfolding, and then we do adapt to that situation most of the time.
Yeah. So when you take a look at what drove the Soviets nuts and what drives the terrorists nuts and everything else like that, is they think they got us in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, what box? And you just adapt, and you basically, it's cover and move, the second law of combat.
Right.
Or the first law of combat, cover and move. Set yourself up for success and work as a team. Make certain you're mutually supportive as your team, and you understand what the goal is, what the mission is, and then you do whatever adaptation you need to make to accomplish that mission.
Right.
And that's where the small unit tactics come in. That's where the leadership happens. That's what I was trying to learn. I was trying to learn all of that. And, for me, I learned those lessons really, really hard,
Mm-hmm.
because I tried stuff and failed. I eventually got recognized for it. I was actually promoted on an M60 tank by General A.M. Gray himself from PFC to Lance Corporal. I mean, for Lance Corporal to Corporal, E3 to E4.
That's pretty incredible.
Oh, it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
It was absolutely stunning. So, I mean, essentially, my command said, if we're going to have another NCO on the roster, who do you want it to be? And they said, hey, I want Karl to do that. So, hey, I was humbled and grateful for the promotion.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that was absolutely wonderful. And it was a verification that I had actually learned some of the hard lessons and actually applied them. And it wasn't a danger to myself or others.
Well, and you were trusted.
Yeah, that I tried to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the entire thing. I tried to be very trustworthy and faithful, and maybe a little bit too blunt and direct, but
It's the Marines. I don't know. Can you be too direct?
I think you can. I mean, if you're going to get into a fight with somebody's ego, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So, here's an example. My CO was trying to sort of brag that he had the highest ASVAB score of everybody in the company.
Uh-huh.
And so they then decided to, well, let's verify this, and they ran the scores, and I was 4 points higher than he was.
Oh, that's maybe not a battle you want to win necessarily.
No, that ended up being really poor to me. I got called into his office and sort of dressed down.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I did or didn't do or anything else like that.
There's nothing worse than getting yelled at and you're not really even sure what happened.
I was being yelled at for humiliating and embarrassing the CO.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. And it went on for like 15 minutes, and I still did not understand what I was being dressed down for.
That's not good at all. So, a question. So you said that you were released early from the Marines to go to Coast Guard Officers Candidate School.
Yes.
So while you're in the desert, had you applied for this? So what happened here? I think this is another interesting story. So tell me how this happened.
You're gonna love this one. So anyway, I actually applied to become an officer just before we were scheduled to go overseas. So
Okay.
I had gotten married to my pen pal. That I met at the airport after landing after Desert Storm.
Wow.
Okay.
That's pretty interesting.
So yeah, we saw each other and got engaged after 10 days, and we were married 3 months later. So very, very short engagement. Basically, I said, she's the same woman that is in the letters. This is my woman.
Yeah.
And so now we're married 35 years.
So it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. So the goal is that, okay, I can apply for OCS, and that way I can become it would be an O1E.
Right.
Okay. And I would, so I basically put in my package, and the package has to go through the company gunny. And the company gunny looked at me and says, enlisted Marines do not become officers, tore it up and threw it in the trash can beside him and says, get out of my face. A couple other colorful words, we'll call it that. So fine, I did the entire thing again a couple weeks later, and he did the same thing, but instead of throwing it in the trash can, he threw it in my face and says, if you ever do this again, I'm going to bust you. Of course, what for?
Right.
He said, I'll come up with something. So basically I took that as, well, I'm not probably going to be able to follow chain of command to be able to get this done. So what's the alternative? And really there wasn't an alternative. And so then the question is, okay, what is it that I'm really trying to do? And the answer was, well, I want to apply the leadership lessons that I had learned, and I want to do it in real life scenarios. And from my perspective is that, okay, after the whooping that we gave to Iraq and Saddam Hussein, who's going to go up against us in the short period of time where, I'm going to be young enough to actually engage in combat and everything else like that? The answer to that is probably nobody, at least from my perspective at that time.
Right.
I wasn't anticipating September 11th or anything else like that. I had no foggy clue. By the way, back in the day in 1986, my senior project for my political science degree, I actually wrote a paper on what I predicted to be the rise of the Islamic terrorism network that is going to replace the communist Axis.
Yeah.
And that was before the fall of the Berlin Wall. So I was actually right in predicting that. Nothing that I insight on, but I had agreed with a couple other people that had read the tea leaves and thought this is that the Islamic threat was going to have greater legs than what the atheist communists would have.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
And here we are.
Yeah, here we are. So I digress. So then the question was, well, okay, Karl, who has a daily mission that actually means something to me?
Mm-hmm.
And so I took an entire step back and thought, okay, who is that? Okay, so you got the Navy running around. Okay, they got freedom of navigation and everything else like that. That's great. You got the Air Force sort of doing the same thing, but it's all combat arms. And then I thought, well, hold it. The Coast Guard that I'm familiar with because of growing up in Western Michigan and Grand Haven, they got a daily mission. They got search and rescue. They're doing migrant interdiction. They're doing everything else like that. It says, that's sort of cool. I can actually do a daily mission with the Coast Guard. I can lead people. They got small units and everything else like that. Talk to a Coast Guard recruiter out in San Diego. Actually spent a little time with them and did a couple flights with a helicopter and, got on a 110 class cutter during the America's Cup type of thing. Thought, yep, this is good. I like this. They have a more family orientation. I'm married now, probably going to have a child. So, granted. So I put in my package and then got shipped overseas to the Philippines and to Okinawa. And so the Coast Guard accepted my package and says, now what you need to do is you need to go for an interview with officers. Okay, fine. How do I do that?
Right, here's where I'm at.
And they says, hey, guess what? We got a station out in Japan that operates Loran Sea, and there's 3 officers out there. They can convene a panel and everything else like that. So I actually got to ride a C-10, which is a Gulfstream 3, from Okinawa, Japan, over to Iwakuni, land there, and then get transportation arranged, everything else like that. Go and stand for a board, and then fly back, and wait, and everything else like that. And by golly, I got accepted. So then, great. They says, well, guess what? We need you in June. So there goes my O1E. So I got out, I think in May. The same day I got out, I got sworn in for the Coast Guard and then went to OCS like a week later. And so no interruption in service. And then 17 weeks of United States Coast Guard Officers Candidate School. So between 13 weeks of Marine Corps boot camp and 17 weeks of Officers Candidate School, I essentially have 6 months of boot camp under my belt.
You're a well-trained person.
I know how to take verbal abuse and stand at attention like nobody else.
Right. And I know how to call people names they probably never heard of. Yeah.
So, I did have one fun thing that happened during OCS. I had an instructor that was getting into my face and just screaming up one side, down the other, and telling me that I was, substandard and can never be able to handle it. And, I would wash out and everything else like that, and just chewing me up one side, down the other. And I just said, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And that wasn't cutting it. And so she's got into my face and literally spit into my face. Well, defend yourself. What do you have to say for yourself? And just everything else like that. Ma'am, this officer candidate led 13 men into combat, destroyed everything that engaged us, and led 13 men out of combat without a single scratch. Ma'am. Face went beet red, turned around and walked off, went to the office and slammed the door, and left everybody in the position of attention for about a half hour.
Yeah, she didn't have an answer for that, did she?
Well, here's the entire thing. She didn't look at my package.
Yeah.
Okay. And in OCS, you don't wear your ribbons.
Right.
So I didn't have my salad. So, I got a combat action ribbon and 2 Navy achievement medals and, all that other kind of stuff. So I got 1 Navy Achievement Medal for building a school for the deaf kids in Longopo, and I got another Navy Achievement Medal for, on my own time over a weekend, teaching reservists how to do fire direction control for mortar section.
2 very cool ways to earn that medal.
Well, here's the entire thing. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Sit around and do nothing? Or am I going to make a positive dent in the universe? I decide I'm going to make a positive dent in the universe wherever I go.
Yeah. It makes sense.
But anyway, so after that, she treated me with contempt every time she could, but oh well.
Right?
I mean, I had many more stressful events before OCS than I ever had during.
Yeah. I mean, once you make it through a combat tour, to me, everything else seems a little bit smaller.
I agree with that. So the way I describe it to the people that I come across is that, hey, look, after everything I've done, I'm living life on easy mode.
Yeah.
There is nothing that you can throw my way that competes to anything that has already happened. I'm on easy mode. Bring it on. What are you going to do?
Right.
Fire weapons at me? Okay. 7.6 dudes. I had 50 kills that came close enough to my face. I could feel it in my cheeks.
Yeah, been there, done that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I've had artillery shot at us. They were full grid square away, so we were standing on top of the tracks waiting for them to call it in. And, you know.
Yeah. Still, being shot at's being shot at. I mean.
Well, I actually, during Coast Guard OCS, I got screened for and approved for aviation to actually fly helicopters. And I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And I was thinking, what do I really want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Now, flying a helicopter is really cool. But here's the thing that I realized during my limited time with the Coast Guard is that when you are the pilot, once you get to actually doing your job, like in a rescue, the guy that's in the door operating the winch becomes the de facto in charge of the entire bird, because he's telling you, where to go, left, right, up, down, and everything else like that. And then, do I really want to essentially be responsible for just flying equipment?
Right.
And I thought, no, that's not really what I want to do. I want to be in circumstances that cause me to have to make decisions and lead. So I decided to go into the marine safety field. Okay, so that has environmental response. It has environmental investigations, and also investigations, collisions at sea, and everything involving mariners and that type of thing. Has the captain of the port and has maritime defense zone. And I thought about it, and I said, nope, that's for me. And so I turned down the aviation and went into the marine safety field.
Okay.
And so most of my time doing that, I was being an investigator. And that to me was absolutely spectacular. What went on, what went wrong, who's responsible for what, who is culpability, and here's the cool thing about the Coast Guard with administrative law. Not only am I the investigator, I get to present the case in front of the judge.
Oh.
Don't use a lawyer. So I had to learn a completely new set of skills involving the law and then how to present a case.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that scratched a big itch, because I could then use a lot of my political science background to be able to apply investigations on the law.
Yeah.
And to me, that was wonderful. And then, the first thing I did, I got there on a butter bar, and they gave me all the administrative duties and everything else like that. And it's like, okay, whatever. But I also got to be the guy that supervised the yeomen,
Mm-hmm.
the storekeepers, and also the HS, the hospital, the hospital corpsman.
Right.
And so we had a clinic. So we also had a contract doctor. So I was responsible for operating a medical clinic. Again, a whole nother set of skills.
Yeah.
I mean, just my learning curve is like, nearly vertical.
It seems like every day it was something new, right?
Oh yeah, and to me it was absolutely wonderful. Learn, apply, learn, apply, learn, apply, and then again, leadership. I made a few really bad mistakes and learned from them and got to apply it and mature from it and everything else like that. So absolute crucible of leadership and having to make stuff work.
Yeah.
So again, just grateful, loved it, and everything else like that. Had some really good officers that were teaching me a lot. Had some outstanding enlisted people that were just, they carried me along. They taught me so much.
Now, do you think that your time as an enlisted Marine helped you accept that help from the enlisted guys as an officer.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you talk to virtually every single enlisted person around, ask them if they want a Mustang officer or somebody fresh out of the academy or somebody fresh out of OCS. They're always going to say, give me the Mustanger first, give me the OCS second, give me the academy last. Now, sometimes you get outstanding people out of the academy.
Yeah.
Okay. And the difference between an outstanding person out of the academy and somebody who's not is humility. And
Right.
with OCS, it's the same thing. The nice thing about being a Mustanger is the humility has been beat into your skull because you realize just how much you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would say other ways to learn humility is to practice jujitsu because you're going to tap out every single time for the first 2 years.
Right.
Because everybody's going to be better than you.
Right.
And the other thing I did to learn humility is my favorite sport is water skiing. So for slalom, every single pass ends with a mistake. You missed.
Right.
There's no such thing as a perfect run.
It's a great way to look at that.
So the more you can say, I have failed and I can learn to do better, the more that you recognize I don't know and I can learn more, the better you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as you think you have no more lessons to learn or that somebody cannot teach you something, that's when the pride comes before the fall.
Right.
And it happens every single time. Virtually every single time that I have made a bad mistake in leadership, it's because I thought, you know what, I got this. I know exactly what to do.
Yeah, surprise, surprise, you don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's just
Now,
terrible.
how long did you serve as an officer in the Coast Guard then?
8 years.
Okay.
So I did 4 years active duty and then 4 years reserve.
Okay.
And if I did not get a reduction in force after my 4 years, I would have tried to stay in for 30. Absolutely, positively loved it.
Yeah. So when you got out after the 4 years, did you come back to Michigan or were you in Michigan at the time? How did that work?
So it's actually 5 years. 5 years active duty. So I got 4 years. Went into the Coast Guard, did OCS, got out, did my first tour at Marine Safety Office, Wilmington, North Carolina. By the way, if you really want a nice community, Wilmington, North Carolina is just top notch.
Yeah.
Next place I did was Port Arthur, Texas. Now, what ended up happening with that is my son ended up with congenital heart defects,
Mm-hmm.
ASD, VSD, if you know what that means.
I do not.
So atrial septum defect, ventral septum defect. Actually, the septum between the two halves of the heart had holes in it that was allowing blood to pass in between them. And so he had to have heart surgery. And so basically with the Coast Guard, I said, hey, I need to be somewhere near a children's hospital that I can have my son attended to.
Yeah.
So they were going to put me in Morgan City, and that's a really long distance away. The best place to send me would have been Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. So they put me in Port Arthur, Texas, which was enough of a drive that it could make that happen. So the Coast Guard did me absolutely wonderful.
That's great.
To send me to Port Arthur, Texas. And then in Port Arthur, Texas, if you can imagine this, we got port and starboard duty between myself and another officer. Each of us has 12 enlisted folks working for us that does the investigations and responses and everything else like that. So port is your on duty for a week.
Uh-huh.
And then on starboard, starboard is doing your admin work for the week. And so you've got response work, admin work, response work, admin work. In 1 year, we did 684 responses per team.
Wow. Wow.
Better than one a day.
Yeah. That's a lot of work.
It's just, the pace was just boom, 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 unrelenting.
Yeah.
And if you weren't efficient, if you couldn't figure stuff out fast, man, you were drowning.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
And it was just unrelenting. But I'll tell you what, again, the crucible, it forced you to learn how to trust people, how to discern stuff, how to ask questions, and how to get to the crux of things so quickly. And it was absolutely wonderful training.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, at that point in time, I got the reduction in force notice. I was going to be out in June. Okay, so where are we going to go? And I had a great opportunity to work with oil field fire response. Won't say the name of the company, but the really famous one. And but the wife said, hey, we got 2 kids. I need to go home to mama, so I got some support. Okay, fine, we're going to go back to West Michigan. Landed in Jenison, Michigan, and worked for an environmental response company.
Uh-huh.
That ended up being about a year long, and then got hired on with a couple other companies, and did environmental construction for several years before actually landing up into renewables, wind and solar and biomass and batteries and that type of thing, which is what I'm doing now.
Okay. Quick question. So I didn't make the connection at first, but your pen pal, now wife, was from Michigan as well.
Yes,
And
Hudsonville, Michigan, next town over from
Oh
Jenison.
my gosh. You can't make that up.
No, you can't.
That's incredible.
And of course, my mom is my mom is the one that set us up,
Uh-huh.
and then my mom sort of really soured on the relationship and did everything she could to try to avoid us getting married.
Right.
So-
Well, your mom was wrong about one thing, right?
Yeah, so it's one of those things. My mom had a few challenges in life that
Yeah.
she had to overcome.
Yeah.
So
Understandable. So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just like, the wheels were turning. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, she's from Michigan too. How awesome is that?
yeah, and she had to learn on the job how to be a military wife.
Oh yeah.
And she did a great job of it. She ended up in leadership positions in the wives club and everything else like that, and really excelled at that. In fact, some of her closest friends, one of her closest friends is still from Wilmington, North Carolina, from the wives club,
Oh, very cool.
and her husband was one of the people that I was in charge of.
Wow. It's funny because I don't know about you, but I have a group of friends that I met early on in my military career that we still are friends. So I'm assuming you kind of have that as well.
Yeah, more of the Marines than in the Coast Guard. Just a couple of the people in the Coast Guard I kept in touch with.
Uh-huh.
One is a deacon in a church, Anglican church out in Portland, Oregon, and then another one, George, is still in North Carolina, just retired from the ferry boat service.
Oh, okay. All right. And you don't tell your Marine Corps friends that you were in the Coast Guard, do you?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah. They don't give you a hard time though at all, right?
No, they don't. I mean,
Yeah.
well, here's the thing. I believe that I earned their respect as a Marine.
Yeah.
And they were very happy for me to see a person, that was enlisted to actually make it into the officer ranks and then to, find success in getting promoted.
Yeah.
So again, just gratitude.
That's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So you, when we were coming down to the marina, which by the way is where we're shooting now, and the breeze is nice and the sun's good, you had mentioned that you had just moved back up or recently moved back up from Indiana. So you ended up in Indiana at some point?
Yeah. So I got a job with a company called RMT Incorporated. RMT stands for Residual Metals Technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And they started a company called Wind Connect, which was to build wind farms. And so I went out there to build a wind farm with them. And the reason why I got that job is because they needed somebody that could handle logistics. And I had just gotten off a project where I had closed out the Sprinkle Road stamping plant for General Motors.
Yeah.
And disposed of over 1 million pounds of various waste involving rail, involving trucks and everything else like that, a whole bunch of logistics, and got that place cleaned up. So that was my expertise. I actually got a white paper that was published on that. It was adopted as a standard of the industry by the EPA as to how to close in plants.
Oh.
So then they said, well, we got this project out there that everything's coming in the wrong order and we need to be able to get it sorted out. Go out there and sort it out. Okay, fine. Then I realized that not only didn't they have the logistics under control, they didn't have a QA/QC program. And then the person that was running the safety program had no background in it. And so I ended up with all three roles. And then the other thing is because in part of the Coast Guard, I had actually gotten I'd taken a class, a really good class, as for the public affairs officer course. So they needed somebody to actually interface with the media. So I got out there and did a media interface and, got profiled in this story. And then when Avangrid was setting up in the United States, it says, hey, we need somebody that knows how to build wind farms and can actually look at the stuff from a high level area. They found the article, then they did a little background research on me and gave me a job offer I couldn't refuse.
Oh, and so now you're back in Michigan.
Well, sort of. I'm out on site.
Yeah.
Okay. But the family is back in Michigan.
Uh-huh.
And then during that time, I'm restless, and I said, you know what, let's start my hand in real estate and develop some water ski lakes. Got that going on, did a whole bunch of tournaments and everything else like that. Anyway, the deal with the real estate sort of unraveled, and at the same time, the company was changing, so I took another job with a company headquartered out of Chicago, and then moved down to Northwest Indiana, took the director of safety position with them.
Okay.
And then they went through a period of downsizing, was let go, basically called it a retirement, got a buyout package, and then moved back up to Michigan in June of 2026. And as part of that, I took another job with a solar company out of Chicago, Sunvest Solar, who operates a company called Rethink Electric. And said, hey, we need somebody, because we're growing up, we need somebody that can run our safety program, but also help mentor our younger people, because we have a whole bevy of young people. So, Karl, you interested? Okay, yeah, let's do it. So I took the job there with the provision that I travel occasionally and spend every other week in the office and mentor people and that type of thing. And so I'm setting up for them an entire competency-based system, training system. I got a project manual that's in review right now. I got all the checklists for safety and quality that is going on, and I'm starting in just a couple weeks every other week walk through of leadership principles. And using the first book I'm doing is a book by a Navy captain called Turn the Ship Around. That really gives a good way of explaining a lot of intent-based safety. And then the next book we're going to be going through is going to be one of Jocko Willink's Leadership Strategy and Tactics, with a short divergence into extreme ownership.
Yeah.
Basically, the crux of everything is you have to communicate well with extreme clarity. You have to build competence in your people. You have to build a team, and then you have to own all the results. You can't blame anybody else other than yourself.
Yeah, we actually went through their course when I worked for Consumers Energy.
Echelon Fronts?
Yes.
Outstanding.
So we went through that, and I think people confuse extreme ownership with extreme I have to do everything ship. You know what I mean? And it's not that.
No.
You're responsible for it, but you let other people do their jobs.
Well, extreme ownership also comes with decentralized command.
Right.
Okay, so which basically means that you have to, and this is taking David Marquet's stuff and Jocko Willink's stuff and putting it together.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you put those two concepts together, essentially what you have is you have to build competence in your people, and as soon as you have competence, you need to get out of their way. At the same time you're building competence, you need to build the team and the trust within the team. You can't do that as a micromanager.
Absolutely.
Okay? So if you have to micromanage, that means that you are in competence building mode. And the goal of the competence building mode is to get out of the micromanagement as quickly as possible And one of my goals in competence building mode is to be able to say, you are going to end up learning things and to do this better than me. I'm going to get you up to the basics, and I need you to become the absolute expert in this, and then you're going to teach me. And so my micro-credential program that I basically took on as a project through American Clean Power is exactly that, where we actually set out the standards and say, okay, you're going to demonstrate this, and while you're demonstrating it, you're going to teach me how to do this, and while we're doing that, I'm going to act like a fifth grader. And I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions, and you need to explain it to me as if I'm a fifth grader, and you can't complicate it or use jargon, because that's the only way that I know that you fully understand it.
Right. In my experience, I have found it's not necessarily the competency of the team that's a problem. It's the inability of the manager to let go and get out of the way. Many times.
Right.
Many times. Not all the time, but many times.
And that's where the decentralized command and the extreme ownership go together.
Right. Right.
Which basically means, as the person experiencing extreme ownership, practicing that, I am going to take all of the blame when stuff goes wrong, but I'm not going to snatch back control.
And you're not going to take all the credit when things go right.
When things go right, everything goes to the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if the dirty little secret behind this, everybody knows. If you're a decent leader and you build the team and you give all the credit to the team, everybody knows. Everybody knows what's going on. There's no secrets there. It's fully transparent. But the only way that you earn trust and respect is not trying to lord it over people, not trying to spike the football. It's actually going in it with the humility and saying, this is my team. These are the people that did this. This guy did this guy did this guy did that. Here is the expertise that is here. Here's the expertise that is here, and then calling them out. And when you do that, you develop trust and gratitude with your team, because they recognize that you are there for them. You're there for the mission. You are going to make certain that they are successful, that they accomplish what they need to accomplish, and that they want to work with you in the future because they know that they can trust you and work with you. Right. And so I have people that, to this day, from the first stuff that I've done, keep in touch with me on LinkedIn and basically ask me for recommendations, or, hey, you got a space for me, and everything else like that. And I've hired people again and again and again, recommended people again and again and again, just because that's the best way to do it, to be able to share the credit, share the competence, and be able to make certain that people are fully invested in their success and what they can do, and they get recognized for it, acknowledged for it. They know that you're there for them.
Yeah, very important. Very important. So I want to shift gears a little bit. We talked briefly about your family and about your son. Do you have any other children, or just the one?
I have 3 kids. I have a daughter that is living in Toronto, Canada, with her husband. She is working right now in basically the software that provides the backbone for home health care. Mm-hmm. And my son-in-law manages real estate portfolios.
Oh, okay.
They have a 2-year-old and a little girl by the name of Blair that is just the apple of Grandpa's eye.
Of course.
I have my son is living in Grand Rapids with his beautiful wife, and they have currently an 8-month-old, Skylar, who is, again, the apple of Grandpa's eye.
Yeah.
And they got one in the hopper that we expect about Christmas time in 2026.
You're going to have a lot of apples in your eyes, Grandpa.
Oh, yeah. And then my youngest is basically now making noises that she wants to have her own children, probably within a year or so, living with her husband in Spring Lake, Michigan, right close to where we're at right now. If you would actually swing the camera over that way and you could look through the peninsula, you could actually see their house. I mean, by the way the crow flies, it's only about a mile away. Once you get on the road, it's about 8 miles.
Yeah. That's excellent.
because you got to go around it. But we can actually take the boat that's right down there and go to a boat launch over there, which is only like a quarter mile from their place, and pick them up on the boat without anybody having to use a car.
Very nice.
So absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in the few hours that we've been together. We've moved a couple of locations. We've had challenges. This has all been great. I've really enjoyed this.
Oh, it's been wonderful.
But as we sort of wind down the conversation, there's always one question I ask. Well, actually, two questions. One, is there anything that you haven't mentioned that you wanted to mention throughout the course of our conversation?
Probably a few thank yous. Obviously, my wife. You can your wife is either a lid or a launch pad, and she has put up with me and supported me and followed me around. And so, Deb, thank you. Giving me 3 wonderful kids, been a great mom, and I just can't give her enough gratitude. Other people, I mean, obviously, my parents, my dad was a huge factor in my life, taught me a lot, particularly patience, very patient man. My grandfather, on my dad's side and mom's side, both showed me how to be patient and loving with a spouse. That was absolutely wonderful examples to be able to see. I've had a couple pastors that really have taught me well, given me a really good grounding in the Word. Basically led me to the realization that I am not my own reference point. That if you don't have an internal reference point that doesn't change, that you go adrift. Mm-hmm. And virtually all the times I've gone adrift in my life is because I lost track of that reference point. It's got to be an internal one. Marine Corps buddies, man, Sam Hale, Mark Rocco, those are 2 guys that I spent a lot of time with. The mortar section, I mean, all the personalities there that really helped me out. George Bryson, I forgot his first name, but gunner's mate Bimbo in the Coast Guard. Another reference point. I had a couple bosun's mate that worked for me that really taught me a lot. I mean, that I can't remember their names right now, and I feel terrible that I can't call them out directly. Mm-hmm. I mean, just stellar individuals. It's just there's so many people that has poured out their life into me that I can't name, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. I can see I can see the appreciation on your face for the folks that have got you where you're at. And that really just kind of leads me to the final question. And that really is, 100 years from now, when someone's watching this and neither you nor I are on this planet anymore, what would you like to leave people with? What would you like people to take away from this conversation and the way you've led your life?
I guess number one is never get over the gospel of Jesus Christ. That you are saved by grace through faith, and that everything that Christ did for you on the cross, never ever get over that. Never take that for granted. Remind yourself of that every single time. Every single time you see that cross, just think about the toughness that went into that. A lot of people think of Jesus as being this Danish-looking guy, with a perfect complexion, stroking a lamb. And they don't recognize him as being the person that walked into the most arduous environment possible that, exceeds my limited portion of combat and all the boot camps and everything else like that. And willingly and graciously gave us everything. But at the same time, he's also the guy that fashioned a whip out of makeshift stuff, knew how to do it, and drove the money changers out of the temples and purified that. that would actually walk up to people knowing that he was in line to get arrested, beaten, and everything else like that, and stood up to them with love without having to be a hothead and full control over his emotions at all the time. And that if you don't recognize that as masculinity, as being able to take responsibility for something that is not your fault, but you take responsibility for making it right at your own sacrifice, with everything that you got and all the toughness without any complaint, and make it happen, that's a man. That's masculinity, and never get over the gospel. And here's the other thing that people don't recognize. Jesus Christ is coming back, fire in his eyes, a sword coming out of his mouth, tattoo on his thigh, on a war horse, completely dressed in white, and going into battle.
Yeah.
That's an image that you need to have, that the Lord is a warrior. And that serving as a warrior is one of those minor things that you can do to share in with the gospel, and to be able to say, hey, I am willing to put my life on the line, that there's something more important than myself, and it's the people that are beside me as my team and behind me as my loved ones, and I'm willing to put myself on the line. Because that's exactly what Jesus Christ did. I'm just following his example the best I can. Don't get it right all the time. Get it wrong, probably more than I ever would want to admit. Got to repent. But that's where I'm trying to be. So if you're listening to this in 100 years or whatever, go back to your Bible. Become the man that you're supposed to be. Take up that cross. Take up that responsibility. Do the stuff that is not, pay for the stuff that's not your fault out of your own sacrifice. Because that's the example that was set. That's what we're called to do. That's it.
Well, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for being with me this afternoon. I really enjoyed this.
Well, I did too. Thank you for letting me tell some stories I haven't thought about in a long time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for listening to the Veterans Archives podcast, and for helping us honor the service and sacrifice of our nation's veterans. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with others so more people can hear these important stories. To learn more about our mission, watch additional veteran interviews, or find out how to record a veteran story, please visit veteransarchives.org. And if you or a veteran you know needs support or resources, we encourage you to download the Battle Buddy app from vetlifetoday.org. You can also hear Veterans Archives on Wreaths Across America Radio every Thursday at 5 p.m.